Thomas Gallaudet, the man who heard the unhearable. Thomas Gallaudet, alongside Laurent Clerc, founded ASL and constructed a base for the deaf education after establishing the American School for the Deaf and Dumb in Hartford, Connecticut, in 1817, after he witnessed the belittlement of hearing-impaired children. While Gallaudet and Clerc both contributed towards the advancement of deaf education in the U.S., Gallaudet was most instrumental in helping this slightly unheard and ignored group of people find their voice and learn to communicate with the world outside, making steps towards equality. Thomas Hopkins Gallaudet was born in Philadelphia on December 10, 1787. He was still young when the Gallaudet family moved to Hartford, Connecticut, where Thomas would one day make a mark in the deaf community. At the age of 15, Thomas moved out to Yale College for his education. In 1805, 2 months before his 18th birthday, Gallaudet graduated from Yale with high honors for his bachelor's degree. Alice Cogswell was a girl who caught spotted fever at the age of 3 and became deaf. Later on, when she was a couple years older, she was trying to play with the other kids near Gallaudet's parents' house. Although she was pushed aside for her disability, Thomas Gallaudet was visiting his parents' house at the time and saw this playing out. He went out to see what was happening. Thomas realized she was deaf, but felt bad that he could not communicate with her. Thomas took a stick and drew the letters H-A-T in the sand for her to see. She recognized it and responded by pointing at Thomas's own hat. This sparked an idea to help her and other kids in the deaf community speak with the rest of us as a connected community. He started his quest for the research of the deaf in 1815 when he sailed to London, because in the U.S., deafness was considered a mental illness and cannot be taught. While searching and studying in London, he met a Frenchman traveling in the area. His name was Laurent Clerc, a man who was also studying in the area about deaf education. Laurent met Thomas when he was struggling to find information, so Laurent invited him back to his hometown, Paris. There, they went to the Royal Institute for the Deaf, which is where Clerc taught. Clerc was born normally, but was in a fire at the age of 2. In the fire, he lost his sense of smell and hearing, so he was totally deaf. He grew up in top honors at his school, and now teaches the deaf at the Royal Institute. France had a lot more friendlier approach to the deaf. They even had schools just for them back in the 1700s. Thomas studied and worked with Clerc, learning French Sign Language. Finally, near the end, Thomas was planning on coming back and creating a new school in America. He convinced Clerc to come back as long as it was a short visit, and they sailed back on June 18, 1816, as they both, in hopes of creating a new school, studied on the ship. Clerc learned how English works, and Thomas did the same with French Sign Language on the 52-day trip. Thomas would not have stopped even if he didn't find Clerc. He was committed to this and will succeed even in the darkest of times. When they got back, they worked hard creating the new language for the American deaf. It needed to be easy to learn and yet have diverse hand signals to fit the American language. The French may have had different ideas when it came to other words, so they made it US friendly. The trip from Paris definitely helps, as the Asylum for the Deaf and Dumb was founded in April 15, 1817. That's less than a year from when they set sail. Obviously, that means the language is not fully finished. It had been added to ever since the school opened it, giving it great versatility. Alice Cogswell was one of the first to enroll in this new and innovative school. It was, after all, founded in Hartford, Connecticut, where she lived near Thomas's parents' house. She has been one of the inspirations for the school, and nowadays has a statue of her standing next to Gallaudet for her contributions towards his school. Thomas Gallaudet, cited by Laurent Clerc, worked to develop curriculum for the deaf. They met with resistance from others like Alexander Graham Bell, who believed in the idea of oralism. This is the act of lip reading and attempts to make people lip speak. Yet the two were able to convince and teach many other states the language. This included New York, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and Ohio, although this was mostly the work of Laurent Clerc. Compared to Thomas, he had a much larger impact on the development of ASL, as he is fluent in both the French and English version. Thomas started the idea, yet Laurent deserves a lot of attention for being able to help transform his older language to a new and improved state. During Clerc's lifetime, 30 different deaf specialized schools were established, and now over 70 residential schools have been constructed for the hearing impaired, and also the blind. He taught hundreds of deaf teachers ASL and popularized the language, so that it's accessible by almost all the deaf. It wasn't until 1967 when it became a rallying point for the political movement. A school named Gallaudet University was founded by Edward Gallaudet, Thomas's son, on the 8th of April, 1864, in Washington, D.C. After being signed into law by President Abraham Lincoln, it became, and still is, the only deaf university that is designed specifically for the deaf. Lawrence succeeded, yet is slightly unheard by the public for his actions. He did succeed in starting the deaf community with something worth building on. Sign language counts as a foreign language in most parts of America, and has taken fourth place as the most used for a second language, right behind German. It has evolved since the Asylum for the Deaf and Dumb, now known as the American School for the Deaf, was founded, and now consists of over 1,000 signs and hand movements, a number that keeps growing every year. One example of this is the sign for COVID, recently being used. It has evolved and flourished from where Thomas started, and is used wisely by almost all the deaf. Through all the pressure and neglect over decades, Thomas Gallaudet brought ASL to power as the best way to communicate if you're deaf. They became a strong and fierce community and have spread the message that a lot can come from a simple disability. Gallaudet and Clark made deafness not a disability and became complete when in October 1986, Dr. King Jordan became Gallaudet's president as the first deaf president of the school. It brought over 1 million people together through the years, and this all started by the change of attention by Thomas after meeting Alice Cogswell. But ASL does have a chance of coming to the end as technological advancements arise. Tech may be able to give all the deaf their hearing back, although many throughout the world are against this idea as it changes who they are, but only they can decide what happens now.